Well, it's wonderful to be here with all of you. I apologize that I can't be live or in person, but let's hope we can do that in the future. It's still an honor to be here virtually with all of you today. My name is Karley Yoder. I am currently the General Manager and Chief Digital Officer of the ultrasound business here at GE Healthcare. I've been in this role for about 6 months. Before that, I actually spent about 4.5 years, though, building out the artificial intelligence business from about 1 engineer and 1 data scientist to about 300 folks at GE Healthcare. And so I'm really excited today to have the opportunity to connect with you and tell you a little bit about where AI is going in healthcare. We've got about 25 minutes, so we'll move through a decent amount of material here pretty quickly. So just for those of you who aren't familiar with GE Healthcare, it's a large, mostly medical device focused healthcare company, over 100 years of innovation and product development, nearly 50,000 employees across the world. We have the largest install base, which just means deployment of our various products across the world. This is something we're really proud of, with the trust that we have with our customers, the partnership we have with many of our customers to build the next stage of products. In every country around the world. We have 2 billion plus exams per year done on our medical devices, which is just reminds me, as I'm working at GE Healthcare, of the impact I can have if we do things right here. And more, we're really looking to move beyond the devices and the products that we've created for 100 plus years and really focus on artificial intelligence, digital workflows and solutions, how you integrate data. And many of you will know this, but healthcare has gotten very good at creating data, but not very great at using data. In the healthcare space, we only use anywhere from 2 to 3% of our data to drive value-added activities. We have an opportunity to do a lot better. The GE Healthcare business lines span from traditional imaging, more device-based solutions from MR, CT, X-ray, into ultrasound, which is where I'll spend a little bit more time with all of you today, but also into what we call life care solutions, which is all around kind of what happens near the bedside and in those critical moments. So everything from patient monitoring to a lot of work in maternal infant care in those precious early moments. And then we also have a business that's much more at the enterprise with digital solutions. And we're really looking to be the digital partner for clinicians, mostly focused on radiology, but also some in the cardiology space. And then we also have a pharmaceutical diagnostics business. So we really try to be focused on diagnostic treatment monitoring, really across the healthcare spectrum. In ultrasound, to dive a little bit deeper on where we'll spend more time today, although I'll touch on a few of the other GE Healthcare business lines and the AI work we're doing there. Ultrasound is such an exciting space to be. I probably don't need to tell many of you that. Many of you could probably teach me about it. But we really believe in a vision where ultrasound will be for everyone, everywhere. By expanding this offering to new users. I mean, the advent of handheld is really allowing us to get ultrasound into the hand of users that wouldn't have been possible before. And I really see a future where, just like the stethoscope today is a tool that everyone can use to hear into the body, ultrasound will be a tool that everyone can use to see into the body and be able to carry it around in their pockets. And so we're really excited with the impact that this technology can have across the healthcare spectrum. Specifically within GE Healthcare, we organize our ultrasound business by care area, by clinical provider type. We think this is really important because even though a lot of the components of the technology might be similar, the tasks that an ultrasound needs to do and the tasks that someone operating the ultrasound needs to do vary drastically by department and by focus area. And so in the women's health space, you have to be excellent at being able to take both the OB and the GY inside. So especially during pregnancy, you have to be excellent at how do you capture an image of a small moving fetus within a mother in those anxious moments. In cardiovascular, it's a moving heart with where quantification is extremely important. And so we just think about these differences in the clinical practice, and we let that voice of customer and that unique workflow drive how we think about product creation. And as you'll see, really drive how we think about artificial intelligence and digital across this product line. So this is what you guys have been talking about a lot over the last couple days. And I'm excited that so many of you guys are eager to be in this space. I truly believe that we have to have folks sitting at a table who are deep medical experts and deep technical experts working together if we're going to unlock the promise of artificial intelligence, because it's a big promise and the opportunities are truly endless when you think about what we can do with this technology in healthcare. Some of the early use cases that have really begun to pick up steam across AI in healthcare are triage. So are we able to identify and prioritize critical patients, right? If Facebook can recognize our friends' faces when we post a picture and alert them that a picture's up, why can't we do the same thing in medical imaging and know if there's a critical condition and make sure the right clinician has his eyes or her eyes on it quickly? Decision support. One thing deep learning is incredibly good at is synthesizing huge amounts of data and never getting tired on mundane tasks. And so we think about, can decision support be the partner to the clinician to help them understand the right path forward in those boundary cases, in those really complex cases. There was a lot of hype 3, 4, 5 years ago about what AI would do to the practice of medicine. And look, I'll be the first one to tell you that clinicians are not going anywhere. AI is not going to replace doctors, but doctors who adopt this technology might replace those who don't. I say that a little tongue in cheek, but this is just like the advent of software, right? This is something that's inevitable, but it's not about replacing, it's about enhancing. Assistive reading, can we take mundane tasks that right now take a long time and take the time out of it? So instead of circling nodules as you're doing a lung read or quantifying all the measurements in a heart read, can the AI do that piece for you automatically, for a clinician automatically, allowing the clinician to spend more time on the so what, the synthesis of the report, inform the care team, and most importantly, spend more time with the patient on the patient care side. We see all of these things as opportunities for what AI can do in the future, and honestly, what AI is doing already today in healthcare. And I'll talk about a few of those examples. So imagine the impact of thousands of apps, right? This is one of the pieces of artificial intelligence that I think people really need to wrap their minds around. There's not going to be 1 or 2 killer applications when it comes to AI in healthcare. There's going to be thousands. So just as important as thinking about how you build each of those apps and how you build the ones with the highest impact to providers and patients, we have to think about how we manage that and make that consumable. Just like on your iPhone, you don't go buy a new iPhone every time you want to use a new app. You can download it all to a central place and manage it in one streamlined way of interacting. We have to be thinking about how we do that with AI so that it's easy to consume and doesn't add extra burden. So one of the ways at GE Healthcare that we have, starting over 4 years ago now, really started investing in platforming to support this AI transformation, this AI revolution. Because quite simply, when it comes to how can AI be most powerful in healthcare, I think you have to get 2 things right. You have to unlock data and then unleash intelligence. That sounds simplistic, but let me tell you what I mean. Unlock data means the power of AI comes from data flowing freely in what is today often locked silo locations where that data lives. And even if you build incredible AI data science in a research setting, if you don't unlock the data for it to flow in the healthcare setting, in the provider workflow, you're never going to tap into the power that artificial intelligence can bring. And so one of the first things we have to do with our Edison platform is build a data aggregation layer and capability so that data can be set free. This is also important when you're developing AI, right? We think about the three V's when it comes to how you develop robust, trusted, high integrity artificial intelligence: volume, variety, and veracity. Volume, yes, you guys all know large amounts of data are needed to create trusted artificial intelligence, but volume alone isn't enough. Variety is extremely important. If you create AI on 10 million images, all from the same town, it might not work when you take it across the street or certainly into another country. So the variety of your data has to represent the population that you're trying to solve for and help. And then last, veracity. This is garbage in, garbage out. If you have a ton of data with great variety, but you do bad annotations and you train the model on the wrong findings, you're going to have a low performing model. However, if you get the right volume and the right variety and the right veracity around how you do your annotation and curation, you have the chance to build a model that has high integrity, generalizes across populations, acts in a trusted, valuable way in the workflow. If you get those pieces right, the last piece of the puzzle you have to get right is this final mile. And this is where you can see on this screen, intelligent applications or smart devices. So the first mile is how you build AI. The final mile is how you deploy it back into the workflow. And this is so pivotal. You have to think from the very beginning how you deliver AI in an invisible manner. Again, think about Google Maps or Apple Maps. If every time you had a new change of direction on where you were supposed to go on your route, you had to open a new app or, God forbid, go buy a new phone, you would never use the app, no matter how useful the information was. We have to think about AI in healthcare the same way. We have to deliver it invisibly into the workflow that clinicians already use and trust. And if we get these pieces right, there's an opportunity to really see healthcare make a stepwise impact, or AI make a stepwise impact in the way we practice healthcare across the world. So let me go a little bit more into GE's AI development strategy. Very simplistically, we talk about upstream and downstream as two different ways to think about how you harness this technology. So upstream is, how do you embed AI deeply into devices, into data producers, so that you can create AI in a higher quality manner with faster throughput, reducing cost, and change the way you actually create data. This is incredibly valuable, and it almost begins to bend the laws of physics that have constrained how we create medical data for many years. GE does a lot of this on our own because it requires owning the devices themselves, or the data producer elements, to really do this well. Downstream, though, is more of an open field. Downstream means once data is produced, whether it's from an MR or from a monitoring device, or from a CT, X-ray, ultrasound, once that data is produced, how do you synthesize it into actionable information? And this is where, think about that massive amount of different algorithms coming into play becomes really important. And this is where GE Healthcare is looking to yes, build some of these applications on our own, but also partner closely with the hundreds of innovators who are emerging in this space, who are creating some really powerful downstream AI. So let me keep an eye towards the time. I think we're doing okay. Let me give a couple examples just so you guys get a flavor here of the work that GE Healthcare is doing in this upstream space, where we're embedding AI deeply in our products. So one example is our critical care suite. This is an X-ray solution where we actually, so imagine you are in the emergency room. One of the first things that they'll do is they'll take a chest X-ray to make sure everything is okay internally. If you have a pneumothorax, which is a collapsed lung, the current practice today would be for that image to go sit in a radiologist queue. And we would hope that someone would get to it in time, identify what was happening so that the care team could intervene. What this AI solution allows us to do is identify that critical condition at the moment of image capture and send it to the top of the radiologist reading queue. This is incredibly powerful, and you can think about how we would use this use case, this type of technology and solution thinking across many different critical moments within the healthcare ecosystem. Another example of this upstream space is a solution in our MR space called Recon DL. I love this one because it bends the laws of physics, and in the MR space, there's been an adage for many years that time equals quality. So the higher quality image that you want to have, the more time a patient needs to spend in the scanner, which is uncomfortable, can cause errors because if you move during an MR, they have to retake it, can cause errors on longitudinal visits because if you're positioned slightly differently, they'll have to retake the image so they can compare it to previous visits. What Recon DL does is it flips that on its head, and we're actually able to have higher quality images in a shorter amount of capture time due to a deep learning model that improves the signal to noise ratio and image sharpness, all while reducing the overall scan time. So really, really powerful upstream capabilities. Another example in the ultrasound space, and this was one of the earliest ones we took through the FDA, is SonoCNS. And this is specifically in the fetal health arena. So imagine your mom or a friend comes in for their 20-week ultrasound exam during pregnancy, which is halfway through pregnancy. This is the big exam where, you know, it can be 30 to 45 minutes and a sonographer sits with the mother, does the full workup and exam. Mothers can be anxious. They're waiting to see if everything's okay, if anything's wrong. One of the trickiest parts of the exam is the fetal head or CNS exam, where there's actually 40 different steps typically to capture those measurements. What SonoCNS does is it automates the plane selections and some of the quantifications, taking those 40 steps down to 8, and allowing at the end of the day, the clinician to be more focused on the patients, and for the novice clinician to act more like an expert, and for the expert to do their job faster. So another great use case of how AI embedded deeply in the device can help a clinician do the job they've always done, just better and faster. This is a view of SonoCNS at work. So you can see how those planes are set automatically by AI, which previously would have had to be done by a technician. And then the quantification of certain measurements are taken automatically as well, which again drives time saving, but also standardization across users who may have slightly different approaches and techniques. So I won't go through all of these, but there's several more examples. I think you're starting to get a flavor of the value that this upstream AI can offer across solutions like SonoList that you see, which is similar to SonoCNS, where you're doing automatic anatomy detection in the ultrasound space, across AirX and our Revolution CT, which is all about getting the right positioning. So instead of allowing human error to be introduced, can we automate plane selections and positioning of patients using AI? So again, the care team can be more focused on the patient than the positioning or logistics. An example here that starts to get into this downstream space, which I'll touch on in a couple more minutes, is what we've done with breast assistance. So down on the bottom left there, this is where we've actually worked with a third-party Kios, and they've created a solution that provides an AI-based quantitative risk assessment around BIRADS, and we've embedded that deeply within our general imaging ultrasound device so that those insights are delivered within the workflow, even though they're built by a partner of GE Healthcare, not GE. And I really think this is a lot where the future will be, is how we do these partnerships well. A last one I'll double click on is our shock toolkit down there in the bottom right. I think this starts to get into not just the future of ultrasound, but also one of the ways that AI can allow ultrasound to move into lower resource settings, but also enable less trained individuals to still give very insightful, powerful reads when it comes to ultrasound. And so this is an ultrasound solution we made for point of care. It's specifically made for those critical moments when you have to get to a read quickly in the scope of shock. You know, time is extremely important there. And so what we've done with our shock toolkit is, I won't go through this whole slide in detail, but we've really done two things. We've allowed experts to do a shock exam faster. So you can see that we can assess the heart in a single step now, driving, I think it's around 82% of time saving. So again, faster in these critical moments. But then the other thing that we've done, in addition to helping experts go faster, is we've helped novices act like experts, where we take some of the more touch-based or skill-based tasks of being able to do a full sweep of the lung, or being able to do the volume statuses or other critical data collections or data analysis. We've been able to automate that with artificial intelligence, which allows lesser trained individuals to still operate an ultrasound, get to the right clinical finding in these critical moments and critical times. So that was a run through of some of our upstream offerings. I'll just touch briefly here in the downstream space, because I do really believe that the power of artificial intelligence will get unlocked when all types of institutions work really closely together. And when it comes to this downstream space, we see 80% of healthcare providers at this point, and honestly, that number has probably even gone up now, that see growth or savings using artificial intelligence. They see this potential, but only 10 to 15% of providers have actually done adoption. So there's this adoption curve where we have clinicians who want to use AI, but they're still struggling to access the AI. So we need to figure out how to bridge that gap for them. And the reality is, you have the demand, you have the supply. There's over 350 startups working on healthcare AI alone, over 200 working on medical imaging AI. And in medical imaging, there's over $1 billion of venture capital funding flowing into this space. So you have providers who want to leverage this AI, you have innovators who are building this AI, but you still have this low adoption rate. And why is that? And I really believe it's because we haven't thought through at the system level of how to drive an ecosystem. And this is again where GE Healthcare is really focused on our investment with the Edison platform, where we want to create an ecosystem that removes the friction from the process. So makes it easier for innovators to access and work with our customers, and makes it easier for our customers to access and work with innovators in this frictionless setting. To do this, we've built out what we call orchestration, and I'll show you here an example in the PAC space. But the idea here would be that data is coming in from many different imaging devices that all comes into the PACs. All of those images and data elements are then fed down into our Edison OpenAI Orchestrator, which you can think about as just a conductor. It's a layer of logic that sits across many different artificial intelligence solutions and sends that data to the right AI app or model. And once they've run their inferencing or run those insights, we send that finding right back into PACs, right back into the same screens and workflows that clinicians are already comfortable to use. And so you can see how we're trying to use the tenets here that are really important, where we create an ecosystem, but we also make it invisible if we do it right. And I think this is going to be hopefully one of the key takeaways you have from this talk is, it's very important to create deep learning that's high integrity, the right volume variety of data, performs well in the wild and across different data elements. But it's not enough to build excellent data science you have to be thinking about how it integrates back into the product and into the workflow itself to make clinicians' lives easier. So with this Edison platform, with this orchestration infrastructure, we're working with several different third-party vendors. This list grows almost every week. There's many more coming soon that I could probably update on this. But the idea being, you know, just like in the upstream arena, we're really focused on the AI applications that most add value to our customers and partners. In this downstream arena, we're really trying to build, in some ways, the roads and bridges that allow our partners to shine. And if we get this right, we really believe that AI has the potential to help healthcare providers spend more time with their patients, which I think is why many of you have gotten into this space, and many of us have dedicated our careers to advancing the ball forward in healthcare. So thank you so much for your time today. I really hope there are some insights and nuggets about the potential in artificial intelligence that you guys took away today. And thank you for letting me join you remotely. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Thanks, folks.